They would love me.
The ghost with the most is back.
Oh, yeah!
Shout that.
There are cult classics, and then there's Beetlejuice. If you were a kid in the late 80s or 90s, this wasn't just a show, it was a whole little universe you ducked into. The strange wasn't scary here. The weird kid wasn't the side character, she was the story. And the loud, unpredictable ghost who had no concept of volume control? Yeah, that guy was your buddy. The show never tried to explain itself. It just jumped straight into neon chaos, bendy physics, sandworms, puns that should not have worked, and somehow it all felt warm. Like it was quietly saying, if you ever felt a little out of place, pull up a chair. You'll fit fine here. And at the center was Lydia Dietz, just being herself, no apology required. So before we dive in, hit super thanks to help keep these deep dives alive. And if you want to revisit the madness yourself, check the description for DVD links that bring back every neon-colored, pun-soaked moment. Now, let's open that attic door, say the name 3 times, and step back into the strangest friendship ever animated. The movie that shouldn't have worked. Let's be honest, if you pitch this show today, someone in the meeting would quietly Google how to fire a person mid-sentence. Because Beetlejuice, as he existed in the movie, was not exactly children's TV material. He was loud, rude, mildly disgusting, and acted like the human embodiment of a flea market haunted ventriloquist dummy. The kind of character your mom would say, "We don't watch things like that about." And yet, somehow it worked. But here's the twist. The show didn't fix Beetlejuice. It didn't sand him down or make him wholesome. It just reframed him. The chaos stayed, the rules didn't. Instead of being a threat, Beetlejuice became the guy who showed you how fun life was when you stopped worrying about being normal. He was the friend who said, "Okay, but what if we made it weirder?" and then actually did it. And Lydia, this is where everything changes, wasn't dragged into his world. She chose it. She saw something in him that nobody else did. And he saw something in her the real world kept ignoring. Their bond wasn't romantic or creepy or forced. It was just 2 people who finally didn't have to explain themselves. For kids who didn't fit in, who were too much or too quiet or too weird, that was huge. He didn't win people over by behaving, he did it by being impossible, and still somehow finding a friend who liked him that way. Which, if you think about it, might be the weirdest miracle of the whole show. The human world versus the other side.
Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice!
To understand why this show sticks with people, you have to look at the 2 worlds Lydia moves between. In the real world, everything is fine, just fine. The houses match, the neighbors smile too wide, and conversations never go deeper than grocery lists. Lydia's not miserable, she just doesn't fit the template. She sees things other people ignore. She cares about things they brush off. And when you're young, that can make you feel like the strange one in the room even when you're saying nothing at all. Then there's the other side. The moment Lydia crosses over, the world gets loud, colors get louder, gravity gives up. The furniture talks, the landscape bends like it's reacting to a mood. And instead of being overwhelmed, Lydia just relaxes. Because for the first time, everything makes sense to her. The weird is just normal there. No one tells her to tone it down. No one tries to diagnose her interests. No one treats her like a walking red flag of phase. She just gets to show up as herself. And Beetlejuice is the key to that door. Not as a ringleader or a corruptor, but as someone operating on the exact same frequency. He doesn't question her. He just gets her. Instantly. And once you see that, it stops feeling like just a spooky cartoon. It starts feeling familiar, like something you understood way before you had words for it. Lydia Dietz, the original goth icon. Before goth became a clothing section at the mall, before Halloween aesthetics got turned into Pinterest boards, there was Lydia Dietz. And the thing is, she wasn't doing it for a look or for attention. Lydia just genuinely liked the things she liked. The spiders, the black lace, the eerie quiet of a cloudy morning. All of it made sense to her long before it made sense to anyone else. She wasn't trying to shock her parents or seem mysterious. She just didn't see the point in pretending to be someone she wasn't. That's probably why she stands out so much, even now. She's thoughtful without trying to sound deep. She's dramatic in the way creative kids naturally are. She pays attention to the things most people ignore, and she doesn't apologize for it. And that's exactly why her connection with Beetlejuice works. It's not a punchline, and it's not ironic. They meet at the exact same frequency. Lydia doesn't need him to calm down. Beetlejuice doesn't need her to fit in. They like each other's oddness. They find comfort in the places where most people would cringe. He never makes her feel like she's too much. She never treats him like he's too strange. They don't go together in any textbook sense. They just click, no explanation needed. It's the kind of friendship where everything makes more sense when the other person is there. Simple as that. Enter Beetlejuice, the undead rock star.
Back of the 50-foot baby! Oh!
Now Beetlejuice. If you remember him only from the movie, you remember a walking disaster. Loud, unpredictable, and maybe one sneeze away from causing property damage. On the show, he's still all of that, just with a different purpose. The chaos isn't meant to scare anyone. It's meant to entertain. He's basically the friend who says, "What if we don't follow the rules at all?" and then actually follows through. He shapeshifts mid-sentence. Sometimes he'd turn into a whole mariachi band, or a giant talking sandwich, or a one-ghost circus, just because the moment felt funnier that way. But the real shift is how he treats Lydia. He likes her, not in a crush way, not in a weird way. He genuinely respects her. When she's upset, he actually cares. When she's bored, he tries to make her laugh. When someone dismisses her, he reacts immediately because he thinks they're the ones who don't get it. He's not responsible, he's not gentle, but he's loyal in this very raw, unpolished way that ends up being surprisingly moving. He shows up every time, loudly, recklessly, sometimes making things worse before they get better. But he's there. Every mess he makes somehow loops back to loyalty. He's chaos, but he shows up. And honestly, that's rarer than any ghost story. The moment everyone remembers. What sticks with most people when they think back to the show is the opening. Not because it was deep or symbolic, but because it came at you fast. You'd sit down, and suddenly Beetlejuice was already there, popping out of a gravestone like he had somewhere to be. Lydia's on a sandworm like that's just a normal thing she does on weekends. The music's going on, everyone's moving, and there's no warm-up or explanation. It didn't hold your hand. It didn't say, "This is the netherworld, and here's how everything works." It assumed you already got it, or that you'd figure it out as you went. And weirdly, you did. Kids didn't need the world explained to them. You just accepted that Lydia had two lives. One in her small town, one in that wild place. And Beetlejuice was the link between them. The opening didn't try to sell anything. It just dropped you into the energy of the show and expected you to go with it. And because of that, it felt like you were being let in on something instead of being taught it. What you remember isn't the visuals themselves, it's the feeling. The sense that you were stepping out of the ordinary into somewhere that made more sense than the real world ever did. The madness behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, this show was held together with the animated equivalent of duct tape and enthusiasm. There was no big glossy animation pipeline, no pressure to make everything look sleek or realistic. The team leaned into the weird because it was cheaper and honestly more interesting. The world bends, stretches, and snaps back like it doesn't understand the concept of structure. Backgrounds were drawn like someone was remembering the room from memory instead of looking at it. Characters moved in ways that don't make anatomical sense, and nobody cared. The netherworld didn't follow physics because physics would have been boring. If a joke worked better with reality breaking in half, reality broke in half. Simple. And Beetlejuice, of course, was the anchor for all of this. He wasn't animated like a normal character. He was animated like the animators were in competition with each other to see who could push him the farthest before someone told them to stop. No one ever did. One scene, he's a snake. The next, he's a sofa. Then he's a foghorn for no reason except that it amused someone in the room. If the gag was funnier when the world bent around him, the world bent. The result is that the show feels hand-built. You can almost see the fingerprints in it, the decisions made in the moment because they felt right, not because they fit a formula. That's why it stands out next to other animated series from the time. It doesn't look like it was produced. It looks like it was made by people who were in on the joke. And once you catch that, you realize the show was never trying to be polished. And it definitely wasn't industry standard. But it had personality, the kind that doesn't survive committee meetings. The weirdly deep meaning of Beetlejuice.
Don't worry, Beetlejuice! I'll think of something!
For all the visual noise and jokes that make you wonder if anyone in the writer's room slept, the show quietly had something real at its center. It's easy to brush off Lydia's trips to the other side as escapism, but that's not what's happening. She isn't running away from her life, she's adding to it. Lydia's world at home isn't terrible. It's just bland in the way regular life can be when you think a little more than the people around you. She sees beauty in things most people don't bother to look at. She asks questions no one else is asking. And because of that, she ends up feeling like she's speaking a language no one else understands. Not tragic, just lonely. The other side solves that not by changing her, but by matching her. The netherworld is loud, dramatic, and unfiltered in a way the real world almost never allows. Nothing is toned down there. If a chair wants to talk, it talks. If a hallway wants to bend, it bends. No one asks why. And Lydia fits into that without needing to adjust anything about herself. And Beetlejuice sees her clearly, not in a deep, poetic way, just plainly. He doesn't ask her to explain her interests. He doesn't suggest she try being a little more normal. He just assumes her perspective makes sense. And for someone who feels out of place, that kind of acceptance lands harder than compliments ever do. There's an episode where Lydia throws a party, and Beetlejuice tries so hard to help her fit in that he accidentally summons a ballroom full of tap-dancing skeletons. Because being supportive is the only way he knows how, even when it comes out sideways. The show never announces this lesson. It never spells it out. It just lets the dynamic exist. Sometimes the place where you fit isn't where you start. Sometimes you find your people in the strangest possible corner of existence. Once that clicks, Beetlejuice stops being the weird friend who causes trouble. He becomes the person who gives Lydia somewhere to be fully herself. And after that, you don't see him the same way again. The ending nobody expected.
Willpower?
That little voice inside your head that tells you when you're doing something wrong.
I never do anything wrong.
By the time the series winds down, you realize nothing about it follows a normal pattern. There isn't some final battle or lesson. The chaos doesn't build to a grand point. It just keeps spinning until suddenly it feels right. One episode ends with Beetlejuice running from his own prank gone wrong. Another with Lydia laughing at the mess he made. It's never neat, but somehow it always lands on a moment that feels earned. The balance between the two of them becomes clearer over time. Lydia isn't the quiet sidekick anymore. She's the reason Beetlejuice doesn't go too far off the rails. And Beetlejuice, for all his nonsense, is the reason her world doesn't close in on her. It's not about one fixing the other. It's about both of them making the chaos livable. The endings of episodes are funny, but they're also soft in a way that sneaks up on you. A talking worm or a collapsing house. And right after that, Lydia is smiling, content. The world hasn't changed, but she has somewhere to belong. He'll throw one more joke before the credits, usually about cheating the rules of the afterlife, and somehow it comes off as almost sweet. It's strange that a story built on screaming ghosts and melting scenery ends up feeling this gentle. For a show that looks like a complete disaster, it ends on harmony every time. Lydia's still herself, Beetlejuice is still impossible, and the world, as weird as it is, finally fits them both. How Beetlejuice broke Hollywood rules.
Dogs will be dogs.
Lydia.
What's wild is that none of this should have worked. The show went against pretty much every rule children's television had at the time. TV for kids was supposed to be clean, simple, and easy to explain. Stories had morals. Characters had clear arcs. The world made sense. And if anything got too weird, too emotional, or too smart, someone in a suit usually stepped in to fix it. Beetlejuice didn't bother with any of that. It didn't slow down to explain its own logic. It didn't simplify its humor. It didn't adjust the tone to be kid-friendly. It just assumed the audience was already weird enough to understand. And honestly, we were. The show didn't care about marketability either. Lydia wasn't redesigned to be cute. Beetlejuice wasn't softened into a lovable mascot. The series doubled down on the mess, the jagged edges, the dark jokes, the strange symbols, the surreal pacing, and somehow that made everything feel more real. Networks normally tried to sell toys, lunchboxes, costumes. This show couldn't care less. It was selling a feeling. The feeling of finding your place among the things that don't fit anywhere else. And that's why it has a grip on people decades later. It didn't try to teach you to behave. It taught you that you didn't have to shrink yourself to make other people comfortable. It shouldn't have worked, but it did, because it never tried to please anyone except the people who got it. Turns out that's a much bigger audience than Hollywood thought. The legacy that refuses to die.
Nobody, airhead, nobody, airhead, nobody, airhead, nobody.
It's been decades since the show ended, but Beetlejuice never really went away. The stripes, the grin, the voice, they all stuck around in one form or another. You still see the references, the t-shirts, the Halloween costumes, the clips recycled online. But what's kept it alive isn't nostalgia. It's the energy of it, the part that still feels oddly fresh. Every generation rediscovers this story and finds something new in it. Some connect with Beetlejuice himself, the unapologetic, unfiltered chaos that doesn't care about what's normal. Others find themselves in Lydia, the quiet kid who doesn't fit, who sees beauty where others see the bizarre. Together, they become a kind of blueprint for an entire corner of pop culture. The messy, funny, gothic middle ground between creepy and kind. You can see echoes of it everywhere. In later Burton films, in how every weird character written since seems to owe a little debt to Lydia's calm honesty and Beetlejuice's total disregard for decorum. It proved you could be spooky and warm, cynical and affectionate, absurd and sincere, all at once. And that's the real trick of it. The show never picked a lane. It was never just a comedy or a horror or a kid's fantasy. It was all those things blended together, stitched with that handmade, slightly deranged heart that made it feel alive. That's why people keep coming back to it. Not because it was perfect, but because it was distinct. It felt personal. So when you hear the theme song again, or see those stripes in a Halloween aisle, it doesn't just trigger nostalgia. It's recognition. It feels like something you knew before you were old enough to explain it. That's why Beetlejuice hasn't faded. He's still here because we still need him. The weird, loud reminder that it's okay to be a little offbeat in a world that keeps trying to iron out the edges. So that's the thing most people miss. For all the jokes and wild visuals, the show was really about two people who understood each other when the rest of the world didn't. Lydia didn't have to pretend to be someone else, and Beetlejuice didn't have to tone himself down. They just worked. If this brought back memories, or if it made you want to rewatch it with fresh eyes, hit super thanks to support the channel. And if you want to dive back into the episodes, I've got DVD links in the description so you can actually relive it, not just remember it. Now, tell me in the comments, would you say his name 3 times? Because if you would, you might already know the answer. It's showtime.